Yo ho ho, welcome to the first video of 2023. Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a lovely holiday season. So today I'm doing my first ever reading statistics video. I've been the type of person that I always thought that I never read enough to have decent reading stats in order to make a video about it that anyone would actually be genuinely interested in watching at the end of the year. But you know what? It's not about how many books you read, it's about how gorgeous your pie charts on Storygraph look. So that's what we're going to get into today. But aside from that, I'm also going to be talking you through my reading goals for 2023 and also going to be giving you a flip through of the reading journal segment of my bullet journal, and I'm very excited about that because I really just want to show it off and I want people to be like, that's so aesthetically pleasing, Roy, you did such a good job, because no one in my real life genuinely appreciates my love for washi tape and stickers and stationery. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. In the year of 2022, I set my reading goal to 40 books on Goodreads and ultimately only ended up reading 30. And you know, I got to that point on New Year's Eve that I was like, I'm a failure. And I quickly just went in and changed it down to 30, and I somehow miraculously hit that reading goal. So I did most of my reading in the latter half of 2022. The first half really wasn't all that great. I had a lot of issues with kind of mental health stuff causing issues with my concentration. I just couldn't sit down and read. It was awful. Because it's a hobby that I love doing. It's something that I find incredibly calming. And when, you know, you can't do something that you love, it just gets really frustrating and kind of sad. I got myself together and I'm on a journey to better mental health and stuff, and I can finally just sit down and read a book and not get distracted. So that's fabulous. So I'm going into 2023 with really high hopes. Really high hopes. Of the 30 books that I read in 2022, 6 of those were manga collections, and then 24 of those were just regular paperbacks. I don't really read hardbacks aside from manga. My total page count for the year was 9,250 pages, which isn't fantastic, and I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't break into the double digits. But to be fair, considering the year that was in it, it's impressive that I read that much at all. So I'm going to take that as a win, even though it's not fantastic, especially for someone who makes book content. The longest book that I read was It by Stephen King. That was 1,166 pages, and I read that somehow in a week. That happened. And then the shortest book that I read was The Story of Hong Gil-dong, which was only 100 pages, and it's this old Korean folktale, and it was actually really sweet. I really enjoyed it for what it was. My most read author of 2022 was Junji Ito, which I feel like doesn't technically count since it is kind of manga and it's not like a full-length novel or anything like that. But I was on this weird quest to read as much Junji Ito as I possibly could because I wanted to get caught up, and then I feel like I've actually burnt myself out on his works at the moment, so I'm going to be taking a little break from him before I completely get caught up with everything that's been published in English, at least. And then when it came to books that have been translated, I read 14 translated books in total, and like that's not a challenge for me really. Like it's quite easy for me to pick up a book that's by an author who's not English, but I definitely want to hone in on certain areas of the world in 2023 and kind of focus more, because I feel like I read a lot of the European authors and fail to kind of branch out of that. So yeah, I want to do a bit more branching out. Then when it comes to my most read genre, of course, no surprise to anyone, it was horror. I read 15 horror novels last year, and I made a proper effort to read more contemporary horror novels, like authors who are basically still alive. That was my overall goal, and I think I did pretty well with that. Let's get into some Storygraph statistics, because this is what I've been most excited for all year. This is what's kind of kept me going, knowing that I'll have this to finally look at, because I watch like other people's statistics from like the last couple of years, and I always thought people were making their own pie charts, and I was like, wow, I wish I was like that, and I didn't realize they were just pulling it from Storygraph because I'm that far behind. So yeah, when we get into the moods of the books that I read, mostly dark books, and then mysterious, tense, reflective, which I feel like that is very on the ball for me. But then we have adventurous, we have emotional, which yeah, I suppose, light-hearted, hopeful, sad, funny, and challenging. What was the one challenging book that I read? I love to know these kind of type. I Robot. Books are subjective, so yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the certain types of genres that some of the books have been put under. Now, if we get into the pace of the books that I read, I mostly read medium-paced books, which is a surprise because I'd normally say I would probably read slow books. Like I'd say that's usually my most read type of book, a nice slow burn of a novel. And then 20% I read fast. So what were the fast novels out of manga, horror. Page number breakdown. I only read one book that was over 500 pages, which is crazy. So I didn't read any 500, 600, 700 page books last year, which I know I didn't. And I'm assuming that one book is actually it now that I think about it. But yeah, mostly I just read around 300 pages, maybe just over 300 pages or so. And that seems pretty accurate, especially towards a lot of the horror novels that I read. We have the fiction to non-fiction ratio, which was 100% fiction. One of my goals that I set to myself at the start of last year was that I wanted to make the effort to not just read more non-fiction, but specifically non-fiction about things that would make me not necessarily smarter, but like just more educated on certain topics. I don't know, I just had this like idea of like an elegant version of myself that knew a lot about a lot of different things, and that just did not happen. So then we get into the genre section, and as you can see, it says I read 16 horror novels, but it includes Mona Awad's Bunny as a horror novel on this, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's more of a magical realism, dark fantasy sort of book, or even like dark academia, maybe with like thriller elements and stuff, but I just don't consider that horror because I didn't find it horrifying. And then it says I read 9 thrillers, which are all horror novels. Again, I don't think I've read a straight up thriller since I read Gone Girl like 6 years ago or something, you know? I don't really read thrillers at all. And then it says I read 9 literary fiction novels, and I'm assuming the exact same novels appear in the contemporary section. It also says I read 6 short stories, which are manga, and then underneath that it has manga. This isn't like a great graph because obviously it repeats books. Books will be listed under, 4, 5, 6 different genres, and then they all appear in your end of year graph. So that's why this graph looks a bit more impressive than anything that I would expect to have, if I'd done it out myself. Classics, really didn't read a lot of classics. I only read like the bare minimum. I read 5, but they were all quite short as well. Yeah, like I did make a proper effort to not read any classics last year because like classics are my safe space when it comes to reading. I can't go wrong with that, something that stood the test of time. For the most part, I'm going to enjoy it. I just wanted to read more contemporary books, and I did, and it wasn't a bad experience. It was grand, but I definitely did miss reading certain classics, and I'm just gonna get right back on it this year. I'm getting right back on that horse. Then we get on to format, which, no surprise, all print. I don't read any ebooks. I don't have an e-reader. I don't listen to audiobooks. I am a hardcore print person. My most read author, so obviously you know that I read Junji Ito the most, but here are some other authors that I read at least 2 books from. Toshikazu Kawaguchi, I read 2 of his novels. That was the Before Coffee Gets Cold series. I read 2 Stephen King books, It and The Mist, which is more of a novella. I read 2 Andrew Sapkowski books, which were the 3rd and 4th books in the Witcher series. And then I read 2 Paul Tremblay books, which were Cabin at the End of the World and A Head Full of Ghosts, which I thought was far superior to the first book I listed. And then it says like all these books in this time period are in English. And you know what? I don't have the paid for version of Storygraph, so I might be talking out of my arse here, but I'd love if it actually told you the breakdown of translated authors, or like which countries you read from or something like that. Like maybe it does on the paid version, I have no idea, so let me know if that is the case. I just don't want to pay for another thing. Like I have so many subscription services already, like I don't need one for books. So now we're on to my favorite graph. This is number of books and pages. Like I think it's so funny, like it's actually not funny, but like is this a book chart or is it actually a mood chart? Because when I say I read most of the books of last year in the latter part of the year, I mean that I read most of the books in October. So how many books did I read in October? I read 9. Okay, 9 books. Okay, some of those were manga, but still, that was my most impressive reading month, was October. And I seem to average around 800 pages a month for the summer at least, so that was all right. And then it went up in September to 1,494 pages read. So but yeah, the amount of books dropped. I just read some fatties. That's when I read it, I think. And then when it gets to star ratings, like I didn't rate anything on Storygraph because I just kept forgetting to go back into it to star rate it and stuff, because you have to go through the whole thing being like, what mood is this? What pacing is this? You know, and I'm just like, I don't have time. I just want to rate the star rating and that's it. I'm gonna make an effort to properly star rate my books, because at least on Storygraph you can do half stars, which is pretty good. I only noticed that the other day. When I was like filling out the first book that I read in the year, I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. But yeah, so those are the Storygraph statistics. Now to get into some of the more juicier stats of the year. For you, juicy, for me, embarrassing, but let's just go with it. Star ratings of books. I read 3 5-star books, which was fantastic because I didn't read any 5-star books over the year of 2021. So I feel like 2022 really made up for it. I read 10 4-star books, 14 3-star books, and then 3 books I didn't actually rate at all. 2 were mangas, and then 1 was a book that I felt that I needed more time to debate the accurate star rating to give it. I was just being a bit pretentious with it. When it comes to books bought in 2022, I bought 49 books, and that is just shocking to me. I just thought I was doing really well with like not buying books, but I do now that I actually think about it, I do remember that every time I was feeling down in the dumps and, you know, wanting to cheer myself up a little bit, I would just buy a book. So that's actually probably the reason why I bought so many books, and like that's not a good thing to do. That's a really shitty headspace to be in, and a really dangerous headspace to be in, especially when it comes to online shopping. But yeah, I just had that like sadness in me that I was like, I need something to look forward to, and knowing that I have a book that I can't wait to read on the way to me is exciting. That's a lot. That's a lot more than I would have said that I actually bought. When it comes to books on hold from my collection, I got rid of 25 books, and you'll be seeing that on haul video. And the current unread books in my book collection is at 43. So bought 49 books, currently have 43 unread books. Not fantastic, but not as bad as it could have been. That's just my TBR, 43 books for the year. And that's okay going into this year. I'm okay with that. And when it comes to those unread books, the genres that they're in is that I have 15 unread fantasy books, I have 14 unread classics, I have 7 unread horror novels, I have 3 literary fiction novels unread, I have 2 sci-fi and 2 manga unread. And then probably like the most embarrassing aspect of this video is that when it comes to money I spent on books, now bear in mind I bought 49 books, I decided to count up accurately like how much I spent online and in person, like in bookstores and stuff, and I just was like, I'm passing away. I feel like I keep saying this, it's not as bad as I expected it to be. It's not as bad, but it's not fucking great, right? It's not great, Roya, and you need to be better in this year. New year, new you, new jumper. On the book depository, I spent €142.42. Now, I thought that was going to be the worst of it, because I feel like sometimes the book depository just gets me. You know, they'll send me that thing being like, we're giving you a 5% off code. I'm like, oh my God, 5%, I need to spend that immediately. I assumed that was going to be the worst. It wasn't. The worst was on Amazon. Now, if you are an anti-Amazon person, please cover your ears. Just cover your ears, because this is fucking awful. I spent €317.18 on books on Amazon in the year of 2022. Like, there is no excuse, but part of me wants to blame that my Prime is still on a student deal, and it just kind of makes it more alluring to me, especially on certain classic books, because you can get like the 10% off student deal if you have like a student Prime account and stuff, and it's literally the only student thing that I have left, and I'm sure they're going to be stripping me of it soon enough. But yeah, that's fairly shit. if I'm gonna be honest, especially compared to books that I bought in bookstores. I only bought books in Chapters, which is on Parnell Square in Dublin City. It's one of my all-time favourite bookshops because they do a lot of sales. They do a lot of £4.99 books. I spent €24.95 there. Obviously not that great of a customer. But to be fair, those were on like 5 books that were all like £4.99 or something like that. Like they were all on sale. So I was like, this is okay. Yeah. So I'm going to make more of an effort to not buy books because I have more than enough at the moment. But also if I am going to buy books, just buy them in Chapters. Buy stuff that's on sale. Buy stuff in charity shops, you know, secondhand. But it's just finding the books that I like in charity shops. That's the difficulty. The total in 2022 that I spent on books is €484.55. So yeah, that's like a third of a really good guitar. That is a holiday to somewhere in Europe. That's like a holiday to Paris or Amsterdam or something, you know? That is a good chunk of money I could have just popped into my savings account, to be perfectly honest. I think that in 2023, I'm not necessarily going to be going on a book buying ban, but I am going to rein it the fuck in. So let's get into a more positive state of mind after all that, at least for me, because Jesus, when it comes to reading challenges that I've set for myself, I genuinely wanted to be challenged. I'd seen people do, you know, book bingo in their bullet journals where they write out like 9 or 12 different things that they want to read in the coming year, and then they'd colour it in and stuff. Like, I'm not mad into gamifying my reading like that, but I wanted to try my own variation of it. I wanted my challenges to be genuinely challenging for me and not just something like, read a book with the colour blue on it. So my first goal of 2023 is that I've set my reading goal to 50 books. Have I ever read 50 books in a year? No. Am I gunning for failure yet again? Abso-fucking-lutely. Do you know what? If you don't try, you'll never know. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I feel positive. I feel like this is actually attainable for me. The most books I've ever read in one year was 45, and that was in 2016, and I don't know what got into me in that year, but I had my head just buried in books. My second goal of the year is to finish a book series that I'm currently reading, and I'm not going to say that it's The Witcher, but I'm not going to not say that it's The Witcher. I'm halfway through it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to be reading the next 2 books probably this month. I just want to get a series finished because I feel like I haven't finished a series in a really long time and it's bugging me. My next goal is that I want to complete the entire works of a classic author. Now, I was just going to say complete the works of an author, you know, but I was like, do you know what? Let's make it classic. And part of me was thinking of like Hubert Selby Jr., but to be honest, I probably wouldn't see 2024 if I read all of his books. Like, that's some heavy shit. So I don't know who I'm going to select. Maybe James Baldwin. That would be a good one because I love his writing and it's a good mix of fiction and non-fiction and stuff. So I don't know. I'm going to have a think of like who, you know, maybe even Edgar Allan Poe. Oh no, that feels too challenging. Number 4 is that I want to read a book that's over 1,000 pages. I feel like that's very doable, and that's just going to be one of those challenges that is like something that I can do within a week or 2. Next is a book by an unfavoured author, and I was thinking about this because like I do try out authors and then I'm like, I absolutely hate this. Like, I never want to read a book by this author ever again. See my authors I won't read video, which I'm going to do a follow-up to this year. I was very like bashful in that video and some of my opinions have changed and I want to talk about that. So I was thinking maybe Haruki Murakami because he's someone I shit on in that video. And it's just because I read Sputnik's Sweetheart and I fucking hated that book. Like, I really didn't like it. I didn't like the magical realism elements. I'm not a huge fan of magical realism in the first place still. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like ugh. The next goal is that I want to complete every single TBR that I set for myself. So that means that every TBR that I make a video for, I want to complete. A lot of the time I don't want to say I don't stick to my TBRs because I've absolutely been better about it over the last year or 2. To be honest, I've been a lot more diligent when it comes to making sure that I'm reading what I actually said I wanted to read. Sometimes I can get distracted. Sometimes I just forget the books that I said I wanted to read and I pick up other books. So this year I have a contingency plan for that to make sure that I stick to it. The next goal is that I want to read 5 nonfiction books. Like I said, I wanted to read some nonfiction books last year and that just didn't come to fruition. So we're going to try again this year. And I feel like 5 is decent enough, and specifically have them not be like memoirs or biographies of like celebrities or something like that. Then I want to finish an entire book series back to back. So something that I'm going to be starting in 2023 and then finishing. And I'm thinking I'll probably go with like a trilogy of books, maybe like 4 books in a series or something like that. I'm definitely not going to be able to do over 4. I feel like that's going to be really hard for me to just mentally stick with, unless I'm really in love with the world. Again, we'll see, but I'm thinking right now it might be a trilogy of something. And then the easiest goal that I've set for myself is read a 2023 new release. I have a couple of new releases on my to read list. Nothing that's come out yet so far, but I feel like this is probably the easiest goal that I have on my list. Finally, probably the most challenging goal, well, one of them after the 50 books, is that I want to read every unread book that I currently own. So that's those 43 books that I was talking about that I'm going to be carrying into 2023 with me. I kind of want to start 2024 with a clean slate, and I think that is doable. Like, there's no books that I've had on my TBR that I like don't want to read anymore. They're still all books that I'm really invested in reading one day. But I just want to make more of an effort to read what I have than get stuff that's new and like, you know, stuff that I've already had on my bookshelves just kind of get pushed to the side yet again. I'm kind of sick of doing that. So yeah, read every unread book that I currently own. It's going to be tough, but hopefully I'll do it. And now I want to show you the reading journal part of my bullet journal. I've never really made any effort before to track my reading or to stay on top of my reading as much as I have now for this year. I really kind of went over the top with like stickers and washi tape and craft paper and trying to make everything aesthetically pleasing. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't, but this I feel like is the journal that is going to be the most functional for me. When you start bullet journaling, you tend to copy what you see other people doing on the internet, and then you find like certain trackers really just don't work for you, stuff you just don't end up using. So this is something that I feel like is my perfect journal. It's like my dream journal. So these are all the goals that I listed out to you there a few moments ago. This is what I was talking about gamifying my reading. I'll be stamping in the letters like book bingo, ! As I go. Then we have my unread books. So these are all the books that I have currently on my bookshelf, organized into genre, and I've wanted to do this for such a long time because I can just look at this and at a glance I'll know, okay, I don't need any more fantasy books, I don't need any more classic books. Maybe I can pick up a sci-fi novel, maybe I can pick up a literary fiction novel. As you can see, I don't have a segment for non-fiction, and that's purely because I didn't read any non-fiction there last year, so I didn't see it being important that I have to have a tracker for it. But yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful having unread TBR, but I did the unread too far over and it was bothering me about the space, so I put unread to be read books. But I really love how this page turned out. I love that I used silver ink for the stamps. These are the stamps that I picked up to use in the bullet journal this year. I was really excited about it, but obviously the one downfall of this set is that there is no numbers, so I'm gonna have to find a number set somewhere, and I feel like that's going to be a bit tricky. But I got these in Southern Green and they were only about like €6.20 or so, and I thought that was pretty decent considering the fact that like you'd be paying €15 for stamps on Amazon. So I was like, yeah, they're grand. So then we have my new releases and my fantasy series spread. This is another spread that I really like. As you can see, I haven't actually filled out the new book releases that I'm anticipating for 2023. I really need to get on that, but I've noticed that a lot of the time for European releases, especially European releases of manga, it always, like the dates just always change. So I've been like kind of procrastinating on that, but I'll get to it. And then this is basically my fantasy tracker. books that I want to read this year in fantasy series. So these are 2 ongoing series. Then I hope to read these 2 series, Faithful and the Fallen and Gentleman Bastard Sequence. Those are just 2 series that I've been interested in reading for quite some time, and I'm sure as I get through the year I'll be filling this up a little bit more. But yeah, I love it. I love the green. You gotta go with green for fantasy, and I love my little bookworm down here. Then we have my books bought and my reading tracker page, and I absolutely love this spread. I think this is like the one that came out perfect, even though at first I wasn't really happy with it. But yeah, so with my books bought, I'm limiting it to 1 page. I think that's fair. If I get very stuck, I can just put a line down the page and have 2 columns. And then on this page, we have my reading tracker, which is a yearly reading tracker, which I've never done before in any of my reading journals. And I'm very excited about it. So these are strips of numbers. They came from 1 to 31 and they came with the journal, thankfully. So I didn't have to write in any numbers, which I was so happy about because I hate writing numbers. I hate it. So I stuck them in and I cut them to size in accordance with the month. Afterwards, I was like, this looks really plain, this looks really bland. Also, I put them all in crooked because I have really shaky hands. So I stuck in this bit of craft paper and I'm just going to write my monthly statistics. So basically all it's going to be is just books read and amount of pages read. So I think that will be good to look back on. Then we have my to be read overview, and you can say, right, you just showed us your TBR. And I was like, no, this is going to be specifically for the TBRs that I set myself in videos. So I actually stick to them. It's just basically for me to look at and know like, okay, I still have a few more books to read that I said I was going to read in that video before that TBR is complete. So this is going to be really handy. Don't love the spread though. Don't love it. I don't know. I wanted to go with purple. I feel like purple was a good choice, but something about this is just like really bland to me. Then we have another spread that I'm not a huge fan of, specifically the favorite book spread. This used to be green. I ripped everything out, started again, and I still don't like it. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that though, because there's no point in being a perfectionist about it. So I have book club books that I'll put here, and then this is going to be where I write my favorite books of the year, all my 5 stars, maybe a really good 4 stars. And then I'm just going to write a 1-word review of each book. So I think that'll be fun to do. And then finally, we have my books finished or books completed. I put finished because I feel like it's a word I prefer over completed, and it's just more aesthetically pleasing to look at. So I'm going to be writing in the dates that I finish a book. Then I'm going to be putting in the title, the rating, the star rating. I kind of fucked up over here and only gave myself 3 columns instead of 4, but who'd care? This holds about, I think it's around 60 books. I think it's 30 in each column. I've seen this in other people's bullet journals when they make lists that they have lines in it like this, and I used a marker that has a little bit of shimmer to it, so it just came out really nice. I really can't wait to start filling this out. This is really the spread that's going to be keeping me motivated for the year and to just keep reading more books. Because I just want to get to the end of, like, I'm already wishing this year away, but I can't wait to get to the end of it and just to have these 2 completed. And I left myself a little bit of space. There's a few more blank pages in case I think of anything else to put in. Let me know if there's any sort of trackers or anything I should include in this that I haven't already. But yeah, that's the reading journal. That's the bullet journal setup so far. So that has been my first ever statistics video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed all the detailed, juicy, embarrassing stats that I gave you. But also for future reference, let me know if there's anything that I should also be tracking or should also be paying attention to when it comes to reading and statistics and all that sort of thing, because I'm very new to this. I really went into this not knowing like what I should be taking note of and what I shouldn't be. So yeah, any help is welcomed. Also, if you're going to be setting yourself any sort of major reading challenges, let me know, because I'm always looking for more inspiration when it comes to keeping myself accountable with reading and all that sort of thing. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the look at the reading journal. And I will be seeing you soon with my end of year wrap up of 2022 and my best books of 2022. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. But anyway, I hope you're keeping well. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.